Welcome to Invisible Glitter, the podcast for women aging with attitude and sparkles. I'm Sandy Parker, founder of the Pink Lady Posse, coach, cheerleader, and your connector in chief for whatever you need to go from what now to what's next. Each episode brings real stories of women rewriting their lives, leaving us with tools we can use and inspiration that motivates. Because your next chapter is not about winding down, it's about lighting up. And the most powerful glitter is the kind no one sees coming. Let's go. Hello, everybody. I am Sandy Parker Martinez, and I am here today with Sharon Rolf. And what I like is her name on there says Queen of Courage. First of all, Sharon, tell us what it is to be a behavioral scientist. What does that mean?
Well, at the time that I got my degree, we were asking each other, what kind of jobs did we apply for, on the classified ads? Because that was back in 1987. And they told us to look for human relation jobs. Well, that's not exactly HR, but it was close. I love to bring out the best in people. What makes me the most unique behavioral scientist is that most people these days are helping people with addictions, the people that need a new behavior, perhaps. And I don't want to work with those kind of people. I want to work with people that are probably good, but they're not their best. Or that oftentimes I have helped people with their resumes. Sometimes we're too close to our own skin to be objective. And so it was a delight when I could tell people, well, of course you're confident. I see confidence all over you, and they don't see it. Helping people bring out their best and that there's a golden nugget inside. One of the books I read twice, I don't do that very often, was Liberating Greatness. And it was about this guy that had been in grade school marked as being mentally challenged. And he went on to become a patent attorney. How many people do that? So there was a long journey between there, and some of it included getting addicted to alcohol and having to recover from that. So I thought, well, if he can liberate his greatness, so can I.
I love that. Well, I have to say, I was kidding her earlier. I think you remind me of Betty White in that you're so warm and positive and friendly and disarming in your kindness. And I just love being with you. And it must be spoken that you are 77 years old and not at all near stopping. Not at all. So we talked about the fact that you had a corporate job that ended in 2016 and you had taken on becoming a life coach. So here you are, a behavioral scientist, now a life coach who wants to see the best in everybody.
Mhm.
And then you went to a class about a spark statement. Like, what does that mean? And what did that mean to you?
Well, we called it in those days our essence statement, and it was a way to describe who you really are. Just in the last 2 weeks, I've heard someone refer to like our resume is our shell identity, but our core identity is what's inside. And the our essence statement is what's inside. So we use the things of what will you love to do? What are your personal qualities, things you like about yourself, your hot buttons, your dreams in about 10 or 12 categories, your values, and your guiding principles. And one of the guiding principles in my life was where there's a will, there's a way. That's what mom would always say. And another one was when you bless others, like volunteering, you bless them, but you also bless yourself. So I love saying volunteering makes you feel good.
So you were describing to me you're at this retreat or this class, and they're coming around, and that was the first time anyone asked you what your soul. statement was. Is that right?
As it became my turn, I sucked in my breath and I thought, nobody has ever asked me to define my soul before. It was just kind of one of those still small voices that before I started reading it. And yeah, I got choked up too. Here's what I read to them that day. I am precious jewel of wisdom. I am colorful collaborator, motivator, and learner. I am tranquil, authentic, and pure inspire. I light fires. That's what I'm here for.
Holy cow, man. So you wrote this and now you can recite it because you have identified who you are. Now, what does that give you in life when you've done that work and you've identified who you are and you know it and you can say it? What does that give you?
Well, Sandy, I like to say it feels a little bit like heaven on earth.
Mm,
That when I want everybody to know that about themselves, but my goal is to impact 10% of the boomers. When you align your direction of your life, your choices, your decisions, how many of you are working in jobs that take your energy instead of give you energy? Well,
yeah.
living from your heart, how delightful it could be when you are living from what delights your heart. It kind of reminds me, I remember on TV between Christmas and New Year's, there was some kind of Lincoln Center thing going on. This lady in a wheelchair was dancing with this silk fabric on the stage, and talk about possibilities of being able to express her dancing desire in a wheelchair. Just delighted me. In fact, I'm still getting bumps about it because we all need to liberate our greatness. We're waiting for you to contribute what's in your heart. And I think that's how we're going to have harmony on earth.
Now, you did say there was a time when you were sitting at a table and you know you're the one to speak. Now, I know some women and men too, surely, they just don't have the power or I don't know, it's guts or courage to
Grit.
say, somebody needs to say out loud here what needs to be said. And you said in this situation, it was you.
Yeah, I kept waiting for somebody to speak up. We're not talking about what needs to be said here. So I imagine kicking the back of my chair and saying, because that was one of the things that helped empower me, Sandy, was um, I'm a reluctant leader, but I lead when there's a need for a leader. And I saw that as a way to help the people coming behind me. That often showed up in some of the recovery work I did because I was willing to step up and do the work, show what you need to walk through to heal your heart and your mind and your soul. I was willing to do that because there are people coming behind me.
Well, I love what you said, a reluctant leader. And here's what I also learned from Seth Godin. I had a poster on my wall and it said, no one's going to choose you, pick yourself. And he was talking about the tendency to wait to be chosen, right? Like on the baseball team, or, you're waiting and you're waiting till they choose you. Well, your life is you choosing yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't choose yourself, we actually don't know who's going to choose us. And that leaves it the ball in their park,
And we're sitting here missing out.
totally missing out. So the other time you told me about, I love this because a couple, life happens, right? Like we check the mail and we check an email and then we're with these people, and these nudges or secret voices or saying things or reading things can really influence us. And speaking of influence, you read a piece, was it a piece of mail that said you were a certain profile? Tell me about that.
Well, I had a friend that a pastor friend, husband and wife in my church that did this. I think it was Taylor Johnson profile, and I think I filled that out maybe a month or two before I retired. And here, within a couple weeks after retiring, this letter came in the mail and said that describe me, and I like learning about myself. That's eye-opening kind of,
Me
and
too.
reassuring that. But this said I was an influencer. What? You got this wrong. This isn't me. Everything else looks pretty good, but an influencer? No. I wonder what's that like? How come that got on there? And so 3, 4 months later, I got a call from New York City about being on a podcast. I kind of think I have something to say. In my coaching classes, I was always the one that seemed to wrap things up after a conversation. I wouldn't participate in the conversation, but I'd wrap up the nuggets. And I name a book. I remember telling them about liberating greatness. I've collected some wisdom. I would put little sayings. Whenever I read a book, I'd make a note and put it in my file for some day.
So let me just clarify, where are you now in the world where you're going to New York City?
Well, it was just on the phone. They were calling me. How they found me, I have no idea. They're probably on LinkedIn.
And so you were on this podcast.
Yeah. And they said, oh, 3, 4 hours later, they called me back and they said, well, you have energy and people can find value in listening to your podcast. And how would you like to be on? We'd like to sponsor you to be on our podcast and help you get rolling on doing it's audio only. I got a big mic out of the process. But and I better not touch that. um, so I did about 26 podcasts with them, audio, and then some ladies here had an office where they did audio and video. So I did another 24, 26. And one was called Maximize Retirement on Spreaker. And the other one was called Fresh Courage is Your Time to Shine.
Ah,
And I would invite in people to interview. I did one on courage with Robert Nicholson here locally. Fascinating gentleman, now about 91. One of my first ones was a lady from here at our area that did a community service projects around the world for a year. And she wound up feeding baby lions, helping out at a baboon sanctuary, and singing Imagine to some Chinese students that were learning English.
so I looked at your website, and first of all, you have about 10 different things that one could share about. But the first one I saw was this book, Fresh Courage in Retirement. And I'm not even, well, I guess I'm retired, but I didn't even have a corporate thing to retire from. I'm just living. I don't know. But I got your book. I love it. It's beautiful, Fresh Courage. And exploring the possibilities really is just the tip of the iceberg. How old were you when you wrote a book? And how did you come by doing that?
Well, it was kind of one of these premonitions I felt I needed to do. I put a lot of my guest stories in the book because I wanted people to see about not living in a box, but outside the box. Like this lady, Joyce, I think her Majors was, and she wrote a book after her coming back from her community service. Smiling at the World was her book. So, but I'm, I've now heard, Sandy, there's a term called possibilist. Like when you're a American, well, this was I'm a possibility person, and there's no IST on the end of it. And yeah, that's me. Because who knows where your nugget of gold is hiding, and let's embrace the possibilities that you're here to shine for the rest of us.
Well, I like that you are taking your knowledge and offering classes. One of the classes I saw was Discover Your Spark, Rekindle Your Joy. And then I have this description of you. I like it. It says you're a behavioral scientist life coach, and you felt invisible and not unprofessional, but what was it?
Unseen. Well,
Unseen.
unseen.
And you help people navigate the bridge from their dreams to fulfilling it. And in these classes, you actually help people discover their authentic self. And how much more adorable can somebody be to study with than you? And
Yeah.
okay, now listen, you got to tell the story of the hats because you look like the least invisible person I ever met. And you go, I was worried about being invisible. I'm like, no, you weren't. And you said, oh, yes, I was. But then let me tell you about the hats. So tell me about that. Tell me that about being invisible in the hats.
Well, I'll just quickly say a couple things that as a kid growing up, there was a lot of sexual abuse in our home, and I I of course didn't want any of that. My older sister was the main victim, and I wanted to be invisible at 6, 8, 10 years old. Um, and I didn't realize until I had retired that I had felt unseen in the bottom of my stomach, that people really didn't know me. I didn't show it. But the first week of a coaching class where I wrote that statement about precious jewel of wisdom, I told them totally strangers. I think sometimes we can tell strangers or something we've never said before, and you wonder, why did I do that? Well, I told them that I'd written an email that previous week that I was going to be at my girlfriend's birthday party, and I might wear a hat, just like, and she said, well, it'll probably just be you. Oh, wait a minute. My sister might wear a hat. There was actually 3 or 4 of us that wore a hat at her birthday the next week. They invited me to bring my hat in. Well, this is what I brought in.
Oh my gosh. You guys are going to have to look on invisibleglitter.com. I'm going to post a picture of this hat. It is a Methuselah hat, if there ever was one. It's beautiful. But not
Well,
just that one hat, another hat. And you wore that hat at this party?
well, they invited me to bring it in the next day, and I decided I would bring in 4 or 5 hats. As long as they fit in a bag. And so every time there was a break, I'd put on a new hat. I had a hot pink one and a floppy white one. And I brought one back from Italy when I had a trip there. And Italy knows how to dress women. I was quite impressed with Italy.
Yeah.
So it got to be fun. And I've got a fun streak in me. But I pondered for months afterward, why did I do that? Well, I came back from one of the breaks from lunch and slapped the table and said, it's not okay to be invisible. I didn't know that was what was trying to be said, revealed, to me. So it became a unfolding. I'm a coming. On my 70th birthday, I decided I would call it my coming out party.
I love you.
One of the principles, I made up some slides, and I had these hands that were kind of locked together, and that represented me and God. God can't do everything on his own. He needs us to cooperate with him. And I decided I would let people know I'm coming out and being visible.
I'm giving that the pause it needs to be absorbed. You know, we were not created to be invisible. We are a precious gem, and there's only one of us. And if we're hiding it, the whole world is missing it. And thank you for sharing that because you are transformed. Fully in your presence, you're transformed. And that is what this is all about because here's the deal 77, what if you live 30 more years?
Yeah, sign me up.
You got a lot to do. And I was just talking with a friend, and she's got a couple of friends that are like 60 and 65, and they say, oh, you should go to Pink Lady Posse and get involved. And they're like, yeah, kind of just happy hanging out. I'm like, oh man, this is not the place for people to just hang out and unwind. It's a great place to unveil yourself of what your potential is. And that's what you were talking about. Your vocation is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. One of your pieces of art in your book. Yes, yes, yes. So here's your big chance, Miss Sharon. Let's say you're going to give the world your one biggest, juiciest, most powerful advice. How would you like to sum it up and give it away?
Well, I like to end, Sandy, my podcast with the saying from Thomas Wolfe. It was on our work wall at work at GTU way back in the 80s and 90s. And it said, if one has a talent and fails to use it, one has failed. If one has a talent and partially uses it, one has partially failed. If one has a talent and finds somehow to use the whole of it, they have gloriously succeeded and won a satisfaction few people ever know.
That is yummy. I just am so grateful to you to be here and shed your light in my life and on the invisible glitter world. And I can't thank you enough for being here. On the show notes on invisibleglitter.com is going to be a picture of that cool hat, a picture of how to get in touch with Sharon. And by all means, if you're prompted to connect, don't withhold a connection that might lead you to the very next email or message or, nibble of truth, nugget of the next step forward. Because we really don't know the path we're on until we get there. And then I want to just say from Pink Lady Posse, it is a great day to live in the world of the Pink Lady Posse. But then again, it almost always is. With that being said, I want to thank you, Sharon, and thank you, everyone. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you so much for being with us at Invisible Glitter for Women Aging with Attitude and Sparkles. Go to pinkladyposse.com where you will find replays, links, and show notes. Want to know when the new episodes launch? Be sure and sign up for the glitter list. So join us and enjoy being linked into our community of bold, brilliant women who are redefining their next chapter together. Invisible Glitter is free to listen to and a proud founding podcast of the Liminal Network. Please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Share this episode and all of your favorite ones with a friend and on social media.